Hi and welcome to my channel again. I hope the last video was helpful and you are enjoying the new ways of shaving. If you haven't watched it yet, click on the link above and get straight to it. I'm pretty sure that some of you might find it very helpful. So back to today's topic. So a couple of days back, as you guys know, uh, JIO Fiber has commercially launched their plans, which is pretty awesome. If you still haven't looked at their plans, go straight to their site and have a look at the plans. It's pretty good. Now I'm not going to talk about the pricing of the plans simply because you've got to realize the fact that for the first time in India, when you compare it with any internet service providers, the base plan itself is 100 Mbps, which means that JIO has announced that they are launching their JIO fiber connection to all the major cities plus smaller cities and towns as well, which means almost everybody is gonna have access to high-speed data. Isn't that amazing? Now that we have high-speed connection all over India, do we happily live ever after? That is exactly what we're going to talk about right after this intro. Welcome back. Thanks for watching that intro. Now let's get straight to the point. So, since not everybody is used to accessing internet in that kind of with that kind of speed, there are a couple of things that you will come across when you pick up the JIO fiber connection or any high-speed data for the first time, right? And I'm going to be stressing on wireless connection. Okay, I'm going to be stressing on wireless connection because that is the primary connection method that you will be using at home to connect to your various devices, right? So you have your device and you've got your router that is provided by your ISP, and that's how you access your internet. There are only two options basically. One is 2,500 rupees, which is in which you get a 2.5 gigahertz router, and that's about it, and the connection, right? And there's another option where you can actually buy a router which is dual band, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz both. Connection was all set, and I logged it to my iMac, connected it to the router, and first thing that you do is do a speed test, right? And that's exactly what I did. So to my surprise, and this is exactly what's going to happen to you as well. And now again, before I say this is not something which is restricted only to JIO, alright? So what's going to happen is you're going to see about 38 to 40 Mbps speed and not 100 Mbps speed over Wi-Fi. Again, not over Ethernet, over Wi-Fi. Now that's something that is to do with the wireless technology of the router, right? The router that is being provided and the technology that it has to transmit that wireless signals. It has got to do with that. It has got nothing to do with any kind of ISP or internet service provider. Now, I knew what to do, and the whole point of this video is I want to share what I did to fix it. It might need a little bit of investment, but it is a good investment, and it is an investment that will be future proof as well. So in case if you want to get another high speed connection, today you have got JIO, tomorrow you have got somebody else. So even if you change your internet service provider, all of these, whatever I'm going to talk about now, is going to help you to continue to have the at least the maximum amount of speed that is possible over Wi-Fi. All right. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So this is exactly what you get when you pay 2,500 rupees for the JIO connection. This is the router that I was talking about. At the back of the router, I've got a telephone port from where you can connect your landline from. Then you have got your 3 LAN ports, which are basically RJ45 ports. I've got a USB 2.0 connection. So if you want, you can basically connect a hard drive to it. Again, this is how it looks like from in the front. You have only one LED. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, there's one LED. It links either blue or red, I think. If it is red, then you don't have connection, and if it is blue, then you have connection. Yeah, we'll figure that out, don't worry about it. So this is what you get when you pay 2,500 rupees, alright? And the first thing that we have to do is log into the interface, because when we log into the interface of this router, that's when you will see a lot of shortcoming, and not a lot of shortcoming, one shortcoming which basically leads to all the problems. So let's look at how do we connect it physically first. So all that you have to do is connect it, keep everything connected, right? I have taken it out from the fiber connection. You don't have to take it out. Basically you leave it how it is. All that you have to do is, it is powered on, it is connected, and if the light is blinking blue, just take one of these Ethernet cables and connect it to one of the LAN ports here, yeah, like this, and take the other end of the Ethernet port and connect it to your PC. Once you're connected to your PC, this is the first thing you've got to do. Once you log into the computer, click on the Wi-Fi button and switch Wi-Fi off so that the connection is only through Ethernet port. Next, right click on the same Wi-Fi icon and then click on Network and Internet Settings. Click on Ethernet on the left hand side and then click Change Adapter Options. Once you are in Change Adapter Options, make sure that you have all the Ethernet adapters disabled apart from the one where the Ethernet cable is connected. If you want, you can disable your Wi-Fi adapter as well, but that is optional. Then go back to the Ethernet which is enabled, right click and go to Properties. Once you are in Properties, click on Internet Protocol IP version 4. Make sure everything is blank and set to automatically detect settings. Now go back to desktop, click Windows plus R button to open run command and type CMD for command prompt. Once command prompt is open, type in ipconfig. Look for the default gateway and copy that IP address. Once you copy that IP address, the next thing you've got to do is open up a browser and then paste that IP address on the browser address bar. Wait for the page to load. Use your default username and password. Click on Login. Once you are logged in, you will see a dashboard which has some basic information, but there's nothing that you can actually tweak or change or edit. Mostly nothing that we want to do. Next we go to Networks, click on Wireless. Takes a while to load the page actually. And you've got access points. Those are the access points which are basically your SSIDs. Then you've got your profiles. Those are the SSIDs. The most you can do is you can probably change your Wi-Fi password, and that's the max that you could do. There's absolutely nothing else. Now I've tried going into other tabs as well, but there are no information about channel settings or preamble settings or any of those basic settings where you can change it. Channel or anything of that sort. There's absolutely nothing on it. It is completely locked down. And even if I go to the advanced settings and to the network settings, there's absolutely nothing that you could do. Basically, zero customization that you could do on this router. So there you go. This is exactly what I was talking about, that this one small lockdown makes a lot of difference, and that's the reason why there's nothing that we can change on this router. Now that you know what are the shortcomings of this router, so basically there's nothing that we could do to tweak the speed over wireless. Alright, so the only option left for us is basically to either buy the dual band router, which is about 5 grand. But again, if you buy the dual, there's nothing wrong with it, alright. But when you buy the 5 gigahertz router from JIO, again, like this one, that is going to be locked for JIO, and you will never be able to use it for anything else unless if you want to, flash it and flash it with a new firmware or something of that sort. If you are able to do that, because I would not do that. I don't know, because maybe you have to return it if you disconnect JIO connection. I don't know, so I would suggest don't do it. I have a better way to deal with the speed. Why dual band? A dual band is actually capable of transmitting data in two different frequencies. One is 2.0 gigahertz and the other one is 5 gigahertz. Now, what is the difference between 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz? When it comes to data speed, 2.4 gigahertz is not fast enough to transmit a lot of speed over Wi-Fi. So the bandwidth of this frequency is not very high, and that's the reason why high data transmission is not possible. Plus, there's way too many interference. Now, when it comes to 5 gigahertz, the transmission channel, there are a lot of transmission channel, non-interfering channels. Plus the bandwidth, right? The bandwidth of the frequency is pretty large, so it can actually transmit a huge amount of data from your client to the router. That is about 5 gigahertz. The problem with 5 gigahertz is the range is not as great as 2.4. 2.4 gigahertz has bigger range than that of the 5 gigahertz frequency. Now, that was about the difference between a 2.4 gigahertz and a 5 gigahertz. So I suggest use 5 gigahertz for 4K streaming, or for streaming your game, or anything that you would like to stream directly from the router, from the internet, right? Any kind of videos. And use 2.4 gigahertz for your cell phones if you want to just watch YouTube videos, because YouTube is very efficient and it uses data very efficiently. Now that we know what is a dual band router and what it is capable of, let me help you set it up. Let's start with the physical bit first. I have got a Asus RT AC51U. So this is an AC router, which is a dual band router. It's got one antenna for 2.4 gigahertz and one antenna for 5 gigahertz. At the back of it, I've got 4 ports. 4 ports for LAN and 1 port for WAN. So the difference between LAN and WAN is, this is for your internal networking purpose, and the WAN is where your internet connection from your internet service provider would go into. Alright, and these are all RJ45 cable connections. Okay. Alright, now again, this is an additional investment, but this additional investment is not going to go for waste. You can use this same router for any other internet service provider in future as well. To start with, we have to do some basic configuration to this router, and to do that, we will have to do the physical connection first, like how we did for on the JIO router. And then we can log into its interface and make some slight changes. Changing the default gateway of this new router, and usually which is set to 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.0.1. Now, to do that, you will need 3 information. One is the default gateway IP address, the default username and password to log into the router administrative console. So all of that information, you will find it on a sticker which is stuck at the back of your router. So get those information and keep it ready. Once you have those information, you log into the computer, make sure the connections are all set, and open up a browser and type in that same IP address that you have noted down from the back of your router. So in my case, since I've already changed my default gateway, it is 192.168.2.1. Enter. So this is, if you're using a different router, it will look slightly different, but don't worry about it. Mostly the configuration changes are almost the same in every router. Okay, so I type in my username, I type in my password, and hit enter. Now this is the interface of the Asus router that I was showing you a little while ago. The intention is to go to LAN, which is the router setting. So by default it would be set to 192.168.1.1. I have changed it to 192.168.2.1. Do not touch the subnet mask because keep it the same. Don't do anything to this. Okay, and click on apply, and it'll take a while to apply all the settings. Once the settings are applied, we should be good to go to the next step. Now before I go to the next step, the reason why we did this is because when we make the peer connection from the router provided by the ISP, in our case is JIO. So in case of JIO, it is optional. It is an optional step. It is up to you if you want to do it or not. But if it is not JIO and if it is a different ISP, then there are chances that the router that is provided by the ISP is using exactly same default gateway, which is 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.10.1. So what will happen in that case is there will be an IP conflict between the router that you have purchased and the router that was provided by the ISP, and that way if that happens, you would not be able to successfully make that peer connection, and that's the reason why we are doing that. So this is the first step. Let's go to the next step. Okay, now that we are all set, let me show you how the physical connectivity looks like. JIO router here, and I've got my Asus router here. You need to connect from one of the LAN ports over here to the WAN port of your Asus router or whatever router you use. Okay, so from the LAN port to the WAN port of this router. Okay, once this connection is made, you will need another Ethernet cable. You will need another Ethernet cable that can go in from the LAN port of this router to the Ethernet of your laptop or your PC, wherever you want to make the configuration. Alright, now that the physical connection is made, we have got to log into the management console of the router, and to do that, like we did before, we open up a browser and type in the IP address of the default gateway, which is 192.168.2.1. Okay. Then type in your username, which is admin by default, then your password, hit enter, and this is your router management console like we saw earlier. Just look at the network map. For me it says connected, for you it might not say connected. Don't worry about it, that is what we are here to set up. So the first thing that you got to do is go into the advanced settings. Don't worry about the way it looks. It might look a little different for your brand of router, but all of these terminologies that are used over here, they are industry standards. So wireless, LAN, WAN, the name would remain the same. Maybe the place would be a little different, but you can figure it out. It's pretty simple. So in this case, under advanced settings, go to WAN, and WAN is wide area network, which is basically where your internet connection comes into. All right, now in the first tab, internet connection, WAN connection type, leave it to automatic IP. You have other options as well, but those other options are used if you are directly connecting this router to your ISP without using the ISP's router. In this case, since it is a peer connection, we do not need any other options. We will use automatic IP. So leave it at automatic IP. Enable WAN, yes. Enable NAT, yes. Now leave everything to default. If enable NAT is no, change it to yes, because we want IP addresses to be distributed from this particular router to all your clients and not from your JIO router. So that's why enable NAT. Everything else, yeah, let's just leave it at default. We will not go through the other tabs because those are for other settings, and we would probably cover that in some other video if you're interested in something like dual WAN setup, load balancing, and things like that. And if you want to set up a DMZ server for yourself, but those are for advanced users. If you're interested, you could let me know and I can post a video on that. For now, this should do it. Go back to the network map. Before you go back to the network map, once you're done with all the settings, click on apply. It takes a while. Once it is done, go back to network map and see if the internet is connected. Internet should be connected. All right, now once the internet is connected, the next thing that you're going to do is set up your wireless connection. Okay, now to set up wireless connection, go to wireless. All right, now currently under general in band, I've got 5 gigahertz selected. Let's start with 2.4 gigahertz. So I've selected 2.4 gigahertz. You can give a name to the Wi-Fi connection. It's up to you whatever name you want to give, but I would suggest that add a suffix to the name so that you can distinguish between 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. So I've added 2.4 gigahertz after the name that I've selected over here. Hide the SSID. I would say don't say yes to it, just say no to it, because otherwise you wouldn't know what are the Wi-Fi connections that you have available when you try to connect from any of the clients that you want to. Wireless mode, I would suggest, if you don't have really old devices that you want to connect to the wireless connection, if you have N, select N, or else you can leave it at auto. Channel bandwidth, if you have a lot of options, then the way to set it up is trial and error method. Basically 20 megahertz is the most common one. That's because it has got the least amount of interference and also a lesser bandwidth. 40 megahertz, it can transmit more amount of data, but it also has more interference in it, and depending on the brand of the router or the category of the router, whether it is a high-end or a middle-end router, you might see 80 hertz or 120 megahertz as well. So I have set it up to 40 megahertz. If I see that the speed drops, then I would change it to 20 megahertz, and the speed may drop because of the interference. So it's more of a trial and error method, but I would suggest start from 20 megahertz. Okay. Control channel, in 2.4 gigahertz you have got 11 channels. By default the selection would be auto, but I would suggest you either use 1, 6 or 11, because those are the non-interfering channels in 2.4 gigahertz. If you have more than one router, let's say if you have 3 routers, in my case I have 3 routers, so I've got 1 router selected for channel 1, 1 for 6 and 1 for 11. Okay, that's the way you set it. If you're not very confident about this, then you can select auto, because the router is smart enough to find the most non-interfering channel by itself. But if you're not satisfied, you can do it manually. Extension channel, just leave it. Authentication method, WPA2 is what is recommended, unless you have very old devices that you want to connect to the router. WPA encryption, leave it as it is. Type in your password that you would want to use while connecting from any device to this router. So basically, if you want to connect to this particular Wi-Fi, then you would need a password, and you can set that password over here. Everything else, whatever is pending, group key, rotation interval, leave it as it is. Rest of the tabs, we will just go through it, but we will not be making any changes. WPS, WTS, wireless MAC filter. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Basically what you can do is, if you want to restrict a wireless connection to only few particular devices, then you could do that by adding Mac filters. So enable Mac filter. If you select yes, then you have an option to type in the MAC address of each and every device that you have at your place, and only those devices will be able to connect to this particular Wi-Fi connection. I usually select no. Radius settings, yeah, I'll give it a pass. Professional. Two things that you would want to consider changing. One is the preamble type. This is again based on if you have a very old device, then leave it at long. If you don't have very old, when I say very old, anything older than 8 years or so, right? If you don't have anything which is older than 8 years or so, leave it, change it to short, because short is faster. The preamble type is basically the newer type of connection that takes short waves. Everything else, leave it as it is. Transmission power adjustment, TX is transmission power adjustment. If you have a slider, slide it to the rightmost so that it gives 100%. Basically, it is the amount of power that it will generate to transmit the Wi-Fi signals. So the more power you have, the more reach it will have. So that's about it. Just click on apply and you should be all set. Now before that, we would also want to set up 5 gigahertz. So you basically have to do the exact same thing for 5 gigahertz as well. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the channel in 5 gigahertz. Basically, you can leave it at whatever is there. You can leave it at auto. Preamble type, yeah, you want to change it to short. Channel, yeah, as I said, leave it to auto or N and AC mixed, which is what I have done. Channel bandwidth, I've left it to 80 megahertz, but as I said, it is trial and error method. If 80 hertz doesn't work for you, then change it to 20 megahertz or 40 megahertz. There is also an option in this particular router to have a mix of it. So basically, whichever has the best connection, the router will make the decision by itself and then use that to connect. It could be 20, 40 or 80. Channel control, leave it at auto. Extension channel auto, I leave it at auto because there's no point setting up channel numbers for 5 gigahertz, because there are a lot of channels that it can use, and there are a lot of non-interfering channels. Everything else remains the same. Just click on apply, and once everything is applied, now is the time when you can disconnect your Ethernet cable and connect using your Wi-Fi. So that was it. Pretty simple. Then the only thing left to do is to check what is the speed that we get right now. Now we are at the end of this video. Hope you liked it and hope this was helpful. Please like, subscribe and comment on this video. If you would like me to make more videos about similar sort of technology, please let me know and I will try to make it as early as possible.